Hello, and thank you for joining today's virtual education program with Cancer Support Community Los Angeles. I'm Larissa Montalvo, the program manager here at CSCLA, and I welcome you to this week's webinar titled Food and Desserts That Love You Back. Today's webinar is the second in a three-part longevity nutrition series. Join us for part 3 on March 15th for more nutrition education, recipes, and cooking demonstrations to help you live healthier longer. Today, we'll be joined by Registered Dietitian and Certified Vegan Chef Katie Reines to discuss how to find foods that you love that also love you back. Don't miss out on the opportunity to dive into some secretly healthy decadence with a brownie and ice cream recipe demonstration. The link for the recipe will be included in the chat in just a few moments. Now, before we begin, if this is your first time joining us, Cancer Support Community Los Angeles is a premier nonprofit organization providing vital social and emotional support to families facing cancer, including patients, caregivers, and their loved ones, all at no cost. Our programs include support groups, healthy lifestyle classes, social activities, and educational programs such as this one. If you'd like to learn more about our services or watch past webinars, please visit our website at www.cancersupportla.org. So without further ado, I would like to welcome today's speaker. Katie Reines is a registered dietitian nutritionist with the Create Cures Foundation Clinic in Santa Monica, California. She has been plant-based for over 10 years and wrote her master's thesis on plant-based nutrition and cancer. Katie is a published author of the Heart Disease Cookbook, a certified vegan chef who provides educational cooking classes and food demonstrations for many audiences, and an owner of a private practice where she utilizes her experience with plant-based nutrition and disordered eating. Welcome, Katie, and thank you so much for joining us again tonight.
Yay, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this. I love that I'm recognizing a bunch of names in the participants panel. Thank you all for joining. And let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Foods and desserts that love you back. So this is in lieu of Valentine's Day, right? We all want to reach for the chocolate and the candy. And this is about not only foods that, here, let me see if I can open the chat box so that I can see what people say. Where did it go? Sorry, give me one moment. I lost my Zoom box. Open in doc. Where did it go? All right, well, hopefully I can, here we go, chat. Okay, I found it. Present. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so, wait, this still isn't working. Here it is, chat. Okay, we're going to be talking about nutrition and making sure that our foods are delicious and healthy and not just satisfying our taste buds, all right? So let's dive into this. Before I do get started, I'm going to put in the chat box a link to schedule a consultation at the Create Cures Foundation. So I am a registered dietitian at the Create Cures Foundation, and one of my most common patients is a late-stage cancer patient. And if you're interested in nutritional counseling, I invite you to go ahead and click the link at the end of this presentation or whenever, and sign up for a consultation. We also offer, if you qualify, we also offer like different types of reimbursement. So that's something to look into. I'm really excited to be working at the Create Cures Foundation, and hopefully will help some of you further with that. And let's get started. So what we're going to go over today are some statistics around heart health, nutrition superstars, so what foods we really want to include to make sure that we are optimizing our heart health, easy and healthy dessert recipes, and there will be a quiz at the end. Per usual, there is a quiz, so be sure to pay attention. All right. First of all, everybody open your chat box. I want to hear all of the foods that you love, the foods that you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot get enough, ... those Lay's chips. Is it maybe it's something healthy, maybe it's something like granola, Often my patients and clients say things like ice cream, or, oh, I just had to have the French fries. Liz says ice cream. I relate. Ice cream is so good. Ooh, berries and nuts. Love it. Rhonda, berries and nuts are so good. And berries can taste definitely like candy, some ripe fruits. We get a couple more answers. Ooh, dark chocolate, licorice. Fantastic. Bread in all forms. Salt and straw. Yeah, salt and straw is so good. So we're all pretty clear on pizza, sushi. Yes, I like chips, but here tortilla chips with less salt, dark chocolate. Awesome. So it seems to me like I hope that you're answering this and honestly. And I think that after we spend some time, or at least after I spend some time working with my patients and clients, they're amazed that they're like, wow, I used to think I loved milk chocolate, but actually I love dark chocolate, right? Or I love berries and nuts. It's like just as satisfying, if not more so, than the foods that they used to love before. So this is just an interesting exercise to see like where are we all at. And it's of course okay to have a special treat every once in a while. And it's really, really fun to get to find things that are just as satisfying, that are better for our health long term. So I'm curious to hear, and it seems like some of you, it may be the same answers. What are some foods that you love that love you back? So in this type of relationship, in honor of Valentine's Day, we don't want to love somebody that doesn't love us back. We want to also reap the benefits. We're providing all of this benefit to our partner, whatever it is. We also want to be reciprocal in this relationship. So if we love French fries, are the French fries loving us back, or are they doing damage to us, right? What are some foods that you love that love you back? It looks like Susan said yogurt, right? Love it. Yogurt is amazing, especially if it's unsweetened. Maybe add your own sweetener. Maybe if it's plant-based, a little bit better. Bread, salad, grilled fish, baked fruit, dessert. So it sounds like, right, hash browns, cool. So there's definitely ways to cook potatoes, like instead of having French fries, having like a baked potato, maybe making your own hash browns is going to be healthier than almond milk. Cool. So we're like wrapping our heads around foods that we love that are truly allowing us to feel really good, and continuing to think about that so that long term we feel like we're not only satisfied with our taste buds, but we're also reaping the benefits long term. And it's really good to have a long list of foods like that to get excited about. And hopefully that list gets longer at the end of this presentation. Nice. Oat milk and rice milk. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, keep brainstorming with this. So goals for today's talk, per usual, making sure that we're clear on not just improving our lifespan, but improving our health span. We want to be happy long-term. We want to be healthy long-term. We're not just going to be living a long time and feeling miserable. We are truly going to be energized, excited, and feeling happy about our food choices and about our lives. And in order to do that, it's really important to be intentional about what foods that we eat. And I want to make it really clear that although, we're basically, the audience here is focused on cancer often, the leading cause of death is still heart disease. So it's really sad that heart disease, this is very preventable most of the time. And a lot of cancer patients may actually pass because of heart disease instead of cancer. So it's really important that we're clear that, okay, yes, let's focus on cancer. And when we're thinking about heart disease, it often takes care of itself, right? We're thinking about a holistic approach to healthcare, and nutrition is really important with that. What's super fascinating, noticing that COVID is the third leading cause of death in the US. This is a recent, let me see, yeah, 2020. So that didn't used to be on there, which is really interesting. But still, even though COVID, it's definitely up there, cancer and heart disease are still the leading causes of death. So let's still focus on those while we, of course, prevent getting COVID as well. Another thing to point out, this global burden of disease, this 2019 study pointing out that things like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, this is just a worldwide crisis, that these are preventable issues, right? So December 2020, most of these risk factors are preventable and treatable. How ridiculous. Who said tequila? Oh my goodness. I guess that was to hosts and panelists, but no, tequila does not love us back. um, yeah, that was just sent to the hosts and panelists. I don't think everyone can see that in the chat box. But yes, I'm just making it very clear that these leading causes of death are very preventable. So we're going to work today on not it's preventable care instead of actually like waiting until we have a problem to go back and fix it. We're preventing the issue. And this particular global burden of disease article published in 2019, if you look at the bottom of this, it compared smoking cigarettes to eating things like processed meats and red meats, which is so fascinating. It was comparing how come it's okay to say how bad cigarettes are and to limit cigarettes, but it's not okay to say how harmful processed meat is and how harmful red meat is and limit those things. So I'm just going to be very blunt right now and say, yeah, these foods do not love us back. These foods that are super highly processed, high in sodium, fried foods. It's not just about what we're adding to our diet. It's also going to be important to work on avoiding certain foods as well. And with all of the research that's out there, the World Health Organization classified red meat as a group 2A carcinogen and processed meat as a group 1. And this is in relation to colorectal cancer. So these foods we really want to avoid for long-term health. So getting that over with, getting the food over with to avoid, food can also be medicine. So there's this amazing article that was published in 2017. It was comparing a bunch of different research, and it showed that eating about 8 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables every day can decrease risk of all causes of death by about a third, by about 31%. And this is so amazing. And I just put on here what one serving of fruits and vegetables look like, and they defined it as about 80 grams. So 80 grams, that looks like 2 cups of spring mix, about a half a cup of broccoli. So it is about a half of a cup, right? A half a cup of blueberries is a serving, a half a cup of black beans cooked is a serving, about 2/3 of a medium banana. If we're eating more fruits and vegetables every day, a fruit and vegetable intake above, so it was saying above 5 a day, shows major benefit in reducing the chance of heart attack, stroke, cancer, and early death. All right. So let's eat those vegetables. Like, I'm excited to, okay. So after hearing that, could we talk a little bit more about in the chat box if there's any fruits and vegetables that you already know that you love? And I know we've already mentioned that. So we've got people said, let's see, berries and nuts. So that's amazing. Is there any vegetables that people like in here? Are there any foods that you know that are really, really good for you that you already like? Are there any foods that stone fruits? Ooh, yeah, like mangoes, so good. Collard greens. Oh, collard greens have more calcium than a cup of milk. Like 1 cup of cooked collard greens has more calcium than a cup of milk. It's amazing. Collard greens are incredible. And keep the list coming. Let's keep thinking about it. Broccoli and Brussels sprouts, so, so, so good. So unfortunately, like these foods having in moderation, are eggs still okay? That's a great question. I don't recommend eggs because they're kind of a cholesterol bomb and a high biologic protein bomb. So when we have high biologic value protein, that's really going to spike cancer growth and growth factor, especially if we're at high risk of cancer or trying to reverse or prevent cancer. When we have concentrated proteins like that, especially if we're not working out and we're an older adult, we don't want our growth factors to increase. And when we have such concentrated proteins like from an egg, those will cause, yes, growth factor increase, and we basically related to cancer growth. We don't want that, okay? But instead of eggs, there's so many other types of proteins from plants that are really, really easy and amazingly delicious to prepare. Also, sardines, anchovies, low mercury fish. We're going to get into this. So let's dive in a little bit more. Ooh, I love it. Asparagus, so good. So these 4 components we're going to focus on today: soluble fiber, nitrates, potassium, and omega-3s. So we're going to start out with soluble fiber. Can you explain further difference between concentrated and other good proteins? Yes, definitely, Rhonda. I'll explain that at the end. Like animal protein versus plant-based protein, they definitely act differently in the body. Plant-based proteins are technically not complete, which is a good thing. Our bodies want to slowly assimilate all those amino acids to create a complete protein, rather than having just like a complete protein like hit your body and then spike that growth factor. Instead, that plant-based protein allows it to slowly come together. Could we answer in the chat box what might be a source of soluble fiber? You may have seen this soluble fiber thrown around on some marketing materials for lowering cholesterol. Soluble fiber, do you happen to know any foods that are high? Chia, flax, hemp seeds. Okay, definitely chia and flax seeds are really high in soluble fiber, and hemp seeds probably have a good amount, but yeah, that's a good answer. So things that are, yes, oatmeal, that was the golden answer. I was looking for the oatmeal. I love it. Soluble fiber is probably the number one thing that people relate with oatmeal, because it says on every box, oatmeal helps remove cholesterol. And this is related to the soluble fiber. So soluble fiber, it's that dietary fiber that can dissolve in water and it creates a gel. So just like chia seeds and flax seeds too, chia seeds form that jelly like pudding consistency. And so does oatmeal. Like oatmeal kind of has that too. If you've ever blended up blueberries actually have a lot of soluble fiber too. It becomes really jelly-like, especially with the pectin in there. So soluble fiber is incredible. There's actually a lot of research out there showing that eating oatmeal, if you eat oatmeal with your sausage and eggs in the morning, it can have a similar effect as a statin drug. That's how potently powerful it is. However, of course, if you have some sort of genetic predisposition, or if you're prescribed statin drugs, please do keep taking them and contact your physician before you say, okay, Katie, I'm just going to have oatmeal instead of my medication here. No, please keep taking your medication unless you talk with your doctor. However, it is truly amazing. If you're really wanting to eat your sausage and eggs, at least having that oatmeal with it can for sure help. And if you remove the sausage and eggs and you're eating a big bowl of oatmeal for breakfast, it's going to be very unlikely that, especially after that meal, that you're going to have inflammation and you're going to have high cholesterol after that meal, because your body is going to be really able to bind and help remove excess cholesterol from the body. That's basically what it's able to help with. Let's move on. Oatmeal makes me hungry. Yeah, isn't oatmeal so good? And there's so many ways to prepare it. It doesn't have to be boring and bland. You can use it as like a blank canvas to add whatever toppings you like. And I just wanted to share here, people associate the word soluble fiber with oatmeal. However, as you can see here, I'll go back really quick. So about 2/3 cup of oats has about 2 grams of soluble fiber. And black beans, in 3/4 cup of cooked black beans, there's 5 grams of soluble fiber. Lima beans, kidney beans, Brussels sprouts have 2 grams, figs, carrots, and these are cooked carrots, which like the fiber becomes a little bit different cooked versus not cooked. Sweet potatoes, turnips, broccoli, lots of vegetables and fruits have soluble fiber. It's not just oatmeal. And something to keep in mind as well, animal products like cheese, butter, milk, eggs, meat, these will not have any fiber in them. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables, is because you're getting in lots of different types of fiber, including soluble fiber. So get in that soluble fiber. Okay, next we're going to be talking about nitrates. And a lot of people have not heard of nitrates. I'm curious if anybody knows a food that's high in nitrates. not to be confused with nitrites, which are actually quite carcinogenic and bad for you. They add nitrites to meat to help preserve the meat. We're talking about nitrates, naturally occurring nitrates in fruits and vegetables. Does anybody happen to know that you could share in the chat box? I know we've got some people that are quick with their fingers. I might be Googling it right now, which is fine. I would love to also, yeah, this is one of those ones that maybe you're not sure about. Nobody knows. I'm gonna give it one more second. Anyone? Celery? That's a great answer. Yeah, celery might have a little bit. All right, let's get into it. No idea. Okay, awesome. This is very exciting. I love it when people don't know because then I get to teach something. So nitrates. Nitrates convert to nitric oxide through our saliva. So I think it's on the next slide here. Yeah, so it's through our bacteria and our saliva that our bodies are able to convert nitrates in food into nitric oxide, which allows our body to utilize the same amount of oxygen and basically be able to do more work. So there's been so much research with cyclists and at high altitude where they utilized less oxygen and were able to perform more because these nitrates are able to more like really optimize the utilization of the oxygen that they have. If you think about being at high altitude where there's less oxygen, those eating beet juice, anybody heard about like doping with beet juice or cyclists utilizing beet juice to help them? These beets should be eaten by people who have heart disease and who have high blood pressure because it'll help to open up those blood vessels. It'll really help to transport oxygen. Nitrates will not turn into nitric oxide if we're utilizing antibacterial mouthwash though. So do not use antibacterial mouthwash because that bacteria in our mouths is so important to do this conversion into nitric oxide. Something interesting too that I put on the bottom of the screen are nitrate medications. So if you've heard of nitroglycerin drugs, they kind of act in the same way as nitrates and nitric oxide. And I'm pretty sure that Viagra is actually a nitroglycerin drug helping with blood flow. So really important, getting in your beets. And I think I have a list next. Yeah, nitrate content of vegetables. So beets, I feel like are a really good source, and a 1/2 cup slices. Aim for more. I feel like this is kind of a high range, like thinking about getting in enough, but actually, yeah, in just 2 cups of shredded butterleaf lettuce, there's 220 milligrams. So just having a salad and then some beets and then, yeah, and then some potato, well, that's kind of a low number, but you get it. We're going to try to get in more nitrates. And I kind of want to find it updated. This is from 2011. I want to find it updated. This was the only one I could find, but my biggest thing about this is just getting in a variety of fruits and vegetables again, because a bunch of fruits and vegetables do have nitrates in them. Specifically, it looks like beets, Swiss chard, arugula, butterleaf lettuce, and getting in a bunch of different herbs. So next, potassium. What foods might be high in potassium? Can you share in the chat box? I have a feeling people are gonna say certain ones. Bananas, yeah. Yeah, bananas are pretty famous for being a good source of potassium. Anything else? Yeah, bananas are probably the nice. Blueberries, sweet potatoes, avocados, amazing, right? Potassium, it's so abundant in many fruits and vegetables, not just bananas, although it is quite high in bananas. Yeah, there's a lot. Like avocados are a great source too. And what's so important about potassium? Potassium kind of negates any negative effect of too much sodium. Potassium has been shown to increase release of nitric oxide, so it can really help increase the release of that, whereas sodium decreases nitric oxide release. And that's what I was mentioning before, how nitric oxide is so potent and so powerful at opening up our blood vessels, really utilizing oxygen, allowing our bodies to do the same amount of work with less oxygen, which is so interesting. We need potassium to be able to do that. It also combats high blood pressure and stroke risk. So when we're taking in more potassium, it's a mineral that acts as an electrolyte, and it's going to really, really be important for our heart health. A lot of people think when you think of minerals, maybe you don't necessarily think of potassium as one that people don't get enough of, but most Americans do not get enough potassium. Here, I think if you see in this study I posted, overall, 99.4% of US adults consumed more sodium daily than recommended. And then at the end here, it says overall less than 2% of US adults and about 5% of US men consumed recommendations for potassium. So barely, like less than 2% of US adults got their need for potassium, whereas over, 90%, what did it say here? 90% consumed more than the tolerable upper limit of sodium. We've got to be taking in more potassium and less sodium. Oh yeah, okay, so I highlighted it here. Less than 2% of US adults intake the adequate potassium amount. All right, that's sad. That's just terrible. And then of course we're leading cause of death is heart disease. It makes so much sense. It's like, okay, like we really need to be taking in more fruits and vegetables. We really need to be getting in enough potassium. Super important. Please share in the chat box. Why do you think people are not getting enough potassium? What's up with that? Like, we get it, people like salty foods and processed foods and eating out. Maybe that's why they're getting in too much sodium, but how come people are not getting enough potassium? Does anybody have any ideas? I will share, Gloria. That's a good question. Lack of education on nutrition. Yeah, probably a big factor there. Does anybody have any ideas? They're bananas. Yeah, processed food in a hurry. I feel like bananas are actually a great like on the go food. Those are always, you're always going to find a banana in my backpack. But yeah, that's a good point. Being in a hurry, processed food, lack of education. Definitely. These are great answers. And these are all probably true. My thing with this is probably because they're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. They're just not. They're not eating enough beans. They're not eating enough potatoes. People are on the go, yeah, eating processed food. Exactly. So you all answered that perfectly. And just to share some higher potassium foods, a baked russet potato has a lot of potassium. A lot of people are scared of potatoes and carbs and think that that's a really bad food. Maybe that's why people aren't getting in enough potassium, because potatoes, fantastic source of potassium. Spinach, sweet potatoes, beans and peas, and then bananas, apricots, dates, melons, amazing sources. And the recommended daily amount is about 4,500 milligrams a day. And that might sound like a lot, like, oh my gosh, 4,000. Let me go back just to show you. Yeah, it says overall less than 2% of US adults meet the recommended, over 4,700 milligrams. So that's the recommendation. And let's take a look at this list again. So if we have one, that's almost 1,000. If we have, I wish I had put the serving sizes here, but I'm assuming this is a general serving size, around 1.5 to 2 cups of spinach, probably cooked. Probably about 1 sweet potato. Like, thinking about throughout the day, if we're eating lots of different plant foods, that's really the only way that we're going to be getting in enough potassium. Tomatoes in the picture. I mean, yeah, I'm sure like it's not just these foods that contain potassium, these ones that I listed. There's a bunch of different fruits and vegetables. All fruits and vegetables do contain some potassium. It's just a mineral that's going to be in there. It's whether or not it tends to be higher or lower in potassium. Does that make sense? So I'm sure tomatoes are a decent source. In just one banana, there's about 422 milligrams of potassium. So yeah, bananas are a pretty good source. And then in dates, you only have about, let me see, how many dates is that? In one date. So in one tiny date, there's 167 milligrams. So that's, if you have like 3 dates, that's pretty decent source. And I just mentioned those because we're going to be utilizing those in the recipes that we talked about, or that I'm excited to share with you. Okay, almost done talking about these superstars for your health and heart health, omega-3 fatty acids. Every single webinar I've done with you all, I've really, really honed in on the importance of omega-3s. Even those plant-based individuals that feel like they're eating so healthy and they're like, what? Why do I have heart disease? Why am I having inflammation? Often looking at their food records, they're not taking in source of omega-3s. They're not intentional about getting in high quality omega-3s, whether that be from ground flax seeds, so chia seeds, walnuts, or if they're open to eating fish. I use the acronym SMASH, that's sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, herring. Great sources of that heart healthy fat, all right? Very important. If we're not taking in enough essential fatty acids, our body is going to overproduce triglycerides. Our body is going to be like, uh-oh, what do I do? And overproduce saturated fat in order to produce hormones and to maintain homeostasis in general in a lot of different areas. So omega-3 is really important to take in every day. Here's a study on this effective omega-3 dosage on cardiovascular outcomes. Basically, this showed that as the increase of 1 gram a day, it was related to a significant reduction of risk of heart disease. So this just goes to show that, if we're continuing to increase, at some point it's going to be too much, of course. But for most people, they're really not taking in enough omega-3s. Most people are taking in too much fat from things like cheese and butter and eggs and animal products like meat, which don't have any essential omega-3 fats. Those omega-3 fats, people seem to need to be more intentional about. So supplementation really helps, right? However, if we're eating a super healthy plant-based diet, eating more and more of these fats might not necessarily be necessary or might not necessarily be beneficial. But yeah, in general, supplementation with the EPA and DHA, that's the omega-3s are the precursor to EPA and DHA, associated with significant reductions in the risk of cardiovascular disease death. All right. So everybody get in those omega-3s, okay? I'm going to probably mention that again in the next slide. And this is actually from the last presentation I did, just showing that 4 ounces of salmon, which is, I only recommend 4 ounces of smash fish twice a week. That's really all you need. It's not a lot. 3 tablespoons of chia seeds. If you look at the omega-3 content, there's a little bit more omega-3 in 3 tablespoons of soaked chia than in 4 ounces of salmon. However, in salmon, it's already in the preformed DHA versus in chia seeds, since it's a plant-based product, it's your body has to do the converting from omega-3 into DHA, which it's possible that it might not all get converted, whereas with salmon, it's a little bit more bioavailable. Tuna, good question, Gloria. Tuna, there's some tunas that are lower in mercury, that are smaller, that are more safe. There's some tunas that are really big, really harmful, really full of mercury. That's the thing with fish, and why I would recommend being more intentional about getting in plant-based sources of omega-3s like flax seeds and chia seeds, because these are not just sources of omega-3s. Flax seeds and chia seeds are also sources of soluble fiber. They're also sources of lignans, which are super anti-inflammatory and potent antioxidants. These are also great sources of so many other minerals and things. Whereas salmon and tuna and these fish sources of DHA, it's possible that just with the state of the oceans right now, it's possible that, yeah, these are contaminated with mercury. These are contaminated with other heavy metals, microplastics. It may not be the most sustainable thing. Most salmon is farmed now. I recommend wild salmon. I think that, yeah, I think it's important to really look into where your food is sourced from and often farmed it's just not a healthy environment. But I think it's also important to think about where you're at and what's available, what we can afford, what works best for you. Having salmon that's farmed, once a week, do what's best for you. Think about, especially if you're used to eating a lot more animal protein, having that salmon is going to be a much better option than things like red meat or processed meat, things like that. Okay. And then, of course, talking about heart health, it's very important that I do touch upon our state of mind. Just getting stressed out a little bit can really increase our blood pressure. It can really spike our blood sugar as well when we get stressed out. So just before I go any further, I want to make it really important that we put our peace of mind first. And we're not just going to be going crazy, making sure we eat as clean as possible and stressing ourselves out about it. Desserty foods and, quote unquote, unhealthy foods have a place. And at the end of the day, this is about doing this to make us feel better because we want to, because we're excited about it, not because we have to, or we're stressed and we're like making sure that we really have a peaceful mindset around all of these decisions. And it's something that we get to do to take care of ourselves and something that we're really enjoying. And if we go to a birthday party and we want to have a piece of cake, of course. And if you want to go to a birthday party and you don't want to have a piece of cake because you don't want to, then of course, that's amazing. But really making sure that we have that peaceful mindset around it. I want to throw that up there really quick. Okay, so I'm going to share with you two quick recipe videos, and then I'll be open to answer any and all questions that you have. This chocolate and ice cream recipe, so fun. I just want to point out the ingredients. Great source of potassium, of course, with the bananas. And I didn't mention, I know in the last talk about our brain health, talking about things like coffee, cacao, dark chocolate, these flavonoids, really great for our brain health. Cacao powder is also high in iron and magnesium, which are really great for building the blood. And magnesium is also really important for blood health. And of course, walnuts get those omega-3s and decrease inflammation with berries. So let's go ahead and watch this. Thank you for sharing the link. Let me just click on this link. And I'll answer those
Not
questions.
ice cream, nice cream. Because this dessert is actually nice to your tummy, taste buds, and tiny arteries. Make sure your bananas are perfectly ripe before you go ahead and peel them, cut them up, and freeze them.
8 hours later.
After the bananas freeze for about 8 hours, put them in a high-speed blender like a Vitamix or a food processor, and just combine them with 2 ingredients, cacao powder and some vanilla. Next, blend just until smooth. You don't want to overblend. Divide into 4 small serving bowls and top with walnuts and berries. Enjoy right away in good health. Not ice cream.
Ooh, okay, so that was the first video. That went pretty quick. I just want to quickly say I did overblend that a little bit, but so good. It comes out like creamy, delicious soft serve. You just need to make sure to freeze your bananas at least 8 hours. And if you have a high-speed blender, this is a very little blender and it still worked, but a food processor works as well. Let me see the other link to the other recipe. Where is it? Here it is.
Want a dessert that you love that actually loves you back? I didn't think it was possible to enjoy a chocolate brownie and achieve my health goals until I discovered this recipe. 3 small beets. Beets are super high in nitrates, which helps with our blood pressure and oxygen utilization. And I'm using ground flax seeds instead of an egg. Ground flax is high in omega-3 fatty acids that is essential for heart health. Also, oats, oat flour. Oats are high in soluble fiber, and this helps to scavenge cholesterol and really helps to prevent and even reverse heart disease. Can't forget blood-building cacao, a great source of iron. After stirring to combine the dry ingredients, peel those boiled beets and blend them in a high-speed blender with the wet ingredients. This includes the soaked dates, which are also a great source of potassium. Potassium is very necessary to regulate our blood pressure. Adding some vanilla and 2 tablespoons of that sweet date soaking water, plus don't forget that flax egg. Blend it until smooth, and then stir to combine the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. Stir in dark chocolate chips. Look for ones that are over 65% dark chocolate, as well as walnuts, also really great source of omega-3s. Stir to combine. The batter should be nice and thick. Stir it evenly onto parchment paper on that brownie pan. And I also like to top it with some more dark chocolate chips and walnuts, and bake for 25 minutes at 350 degrees. Let it cool before you cut it into 16 pieces and enjoy.
Yeah, those brownies are unbelievable. They're so good. I love those brownies so much. I made like 3 batches for Valentine's Day. Uh-oh. Squeeze out. Okay. Let me share the screen one more time. And then I also just wanted to quickly remind everybody, oh, there's a quiz, of course. Here, let me pull up this. Okay, awesome. So quickly, let's go over this quiz. I just want to make sure that this information is dialed in for everybody. Potassium helps lower blood pressure. Yes, that is exactly what I said. Yes, it does. We need to be eating more fruits and vegetables to meet our daily need for potassium, because that's going to really help to lower and regulate our blood pressure. So what are 3 foods that are a good source of soluble fiber? I think that you already had mentioned it before, but I'd love to hear if different people want to answer or are able to answer. Yes, Deanan, is it Deneen? Oatmeal, amazing. Do you have the recipe? Yes. And those links I can send as well, the recipe for the brownies. I can definitely share that. I can even go back if you want a screenshot. Oatmeal, chia seeds, nice. Hemp seeds are more of a good source of omega-3s, but they're probably a good source of soluble fiber as well. Oatmeal, chia seeds, is there one more that we can share about soluble fiber? Those fibers, yes, flax, amazing. Okay, awesome. And yeah, we went over a bunch of fruits and vegetables that are a great source of soluble fiber. What are 3 foods that are a good source of nitrates? Yeah, Sharon, I can definitely share the black bean, or excuse me, not black bean, those are beet brownies. I can share that recipe with you as well. But this question is a little bit more difficult because we were like, oh my gosh, what foods are actually higher in nitrates? Does anybody remember the one that I really mentioned a lot about that's high in nitrates? Yes, beets. So potato is a good source of potassium, but beets are definitely known for just being well researched in their benefit because of the nitrates. Beets are the most researched, but also, yeah, butter lettuce, butter lettuce, arugula. Those are other ones as well. But definitely beets are everybody should look out for beets and try and include those more. How about 3 foods that are a good source of potassium? Looks like Susan jumped the gun on that one a little bit. Yes, sweet potato. Potato, yes, baked potatoes. Banana, blueberries, sweet potatoes, spinach. Yeah, bananas. Good. That's what's up. Yes. Awesome. Okay, I love this. You're all getting really clear on getting excited about these foods because you're like, oh, wow, like this food contains this and this food contains that. It's just like so fun when you're educated about this, because then you can build your plate and be like, oh yeah, I'm getting my needs met for these nutrients. I feel so good. How about 3 foods that are a good source of omega-3s? I want to play like Jeopardy music. Salmon, chia, flax. Woohoo. Yeah, salmon, chia, flax. Beautiful. Walnuts, sardines. We're listing lots of them. Yes, I love it. You're well educated on the omega-3s. People are listing these. Good. Awesome. And then Yeah. Omega-3s, you can also supplement with an algae omega supplement from plant-based source, or you can get a fish oil supplement. That's true, Susan. Okay. And lastly, why is it important to increase vegetable and fruit intake? This is pretty open-ended. Percentage less to get COVID. Yeah, percentage less to get COVID, reduces blood pressure. These answers are all correct. Live longer and better. Yes, you get more fiber. Yeah, these answers are all amazing. Yeah, you reduce your risk of death and disease by a lot. You're able to get in enough potassium, more fiber. Amazing. Exactly. Great job, everybody. Really, really great answers. And then, oh, I brought frozen blueberries, but it was horrible once it thawed. Oh, well, frozen blueberries aren't for you, then fresh is always an option. And then I just want to remind everybody again that I work at the Create Cures Foundation, and it's amazing what I get to do with my patients. I get to meet my patients where they're at instead of just dumping information on you all to see like, okay, what's working, what's not working, what changes are you excited about making, what changes are you not excited about making, what can we do together? And if that's not something that you have available right now with your healthcare team, to definitely schedule a consultation with us. And I'm actually going to send that link one more time. We are taking on more clients, and to just, inquire about a package, or even just to check us out, a new patient consultation. I would love to help more people. Let me see. I'm just going to go back. And if anybody has any questions, to ask those in the Q&A. Let's see.
Katie, this was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I learned so much from you last time that I wasn't even sure how much more there was to learn. So I am pleasantly surprised.
Awesome.
We have a couple questions here. Someone's asking if we can put up the beet brownie recipe. We don't have that one prepared just yet. Do we have the link for that?
I actually can put it up on my screen. Let me see if I can.
That was a little.
I don't have it on my screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can for sure send. Let me actually send the link really quick. Brownies. Woohoo! What was that? That was really cute. Let me see.
And for those of you who are dropping questions into the chat, please put them into the Q&A feature. The chat goes a little too quickly for us to keep track of. You can drop those in. And thank you, Katie. She dropped the recipe into the chat. Wonderful. Okay. Someone's asking here if dried fruits are good.
When it comes to getting in our fiber and our potassium, I think it's very important to see what's realistic for you, right? If you're traveling, if you're hiking, if you're at work and you're like, oh, I need, on the go, I think dry fruit, especially when it's combined with some walnuts, some source of fat, maybe some source of protein, that's going to help to blunt any potential damaging blood sugar spike. The only problem that I have with dry fruit is that because it's so dry, it's really, really concentrated sugar spike. So like, for example, a raisin versus like a grape, grapes have so much water content that can really help us to feel full. It can really help to decrease any spike in blood sugar, whereas raisins, it's just so dry and so concentrated, you can easily eat too many of them, and you won't necessarily feel as full. So it's a good idea to combine. And dried fruits are fantastic. Just watch out also for things like sulfites and preservatives. Try and get ones that don't have preservatives, that don't have added sugar, added oils, like things like dried cranberries. Cranberries are really sour, so often they add a lot of sugar in there, they add some preservatives. So just look at the ingredients label, and if it's just simply raisins on the ingredients, mix that into some trail mix and it's amazing. Yeah, I don't recommend eating too much dried fruit on its own, but I think it's fantastic. And how I use dates in this recipe, I think it's a lot better to have dates instead of using brown sugar and white sugar, right? Because dates are full of fiber, full of potassium. and I soaked them even. So I created it to be even more high water content. I put the water back into them. So yeah, that's a great substitute for sweetening things instead of using refined sugar.
Great,
Okay.
thank you. Our next question is, if you could, they're asking if you could explain the difference between concentrated proteins and regular proteins.
Yes, definitely. This is a great question that I feel like I answer a lot. So I hope everybody, a lot of people probably relate to this question. When it comes to animal protein, if you've heard of the term complete protein, this means that animal-based proteins, they have all the quote unquote essential amino acids. So these amino acids are the amino acids that our bodies require to take in. We can't create these on our own from other things. We need to take in these amino acids to create a complete protein. Okay. Back in the day, it used to be thought that you needed to combine rice and beans at every single meal in order to create a complete protein as a vegetarian. And that's actually been shown to not be true. Our bodies actually do have a storage place for amino acids, and we're able to, throughout the day, complete those proteins. Okay. However, when we're taking in an egg, right, which is the most complete protein source, quote unquote, like it's the highest biologic value protein. That's why bodybuilders love eggs. Bodybuilders love that increase of growth factor from animal proteins like eggs, chicken, right, meat. This is a very concentrated, complete protein source, which you would think is a good thing. People are like, oh, fantastic. It's a complete protein. Amazing. As a dietitian for late stage cancer patients, I think that's a terrible thing. I say, do not look to take in complete proteins. Complete proteins are what spike insulin-like growth factor, which spikes cancer growth. As adults, we do not want growth factor to be spiking. As adults, especially if we're not muscle conditioning, we do not want to increase growth factor in our bodies. Okay. So it's going to be important to think about, how am I going to intake proteins from plants so that my body can gently and slowly take the amino acids from different plants and assimilate those. It's kind of like you were asking about the our dried fruits, okay? And I said, well, you don't want to have a spike in blood sugar. Our eggs is meat okay? You don't want to have a spike in growth factor. You don't want to have that spike. So it's a good idea to, just like with our sugars, to try and do something to blunt that spike. We want to eat plant-based source of protein so that we gently assimilate our proteins and not have that spike. Does that make sense? I hope that was clearly explained.
I think that makes sense to me. I've never thought of that question before, so that's a lot of information, but I think that made sense.
Yeah, it is a lot of information, and it's different depending on your goals. I think that, of course, if you're frail and you really have low growth factor and you're losing a lot of muscle, then we do want to take in something. Maybe it would be better for you to have that animal source of protein. But for most people, we're taking in too much protein. And especially, cancer patients, we do not want spike in growth factor. Okay.
I think building off this question, someone's asking, would it be better than to eat egg whites only?
No. So, well, of course, right, it is a fat and cholesterol bomb in the yolk, which there's nothing in there that's going to be really health promoting in there in the yolk. It's still animal protein coming from that egg yolk. So having that be something that's a special treat. I wouldn't recommend that being something that you eat all day, every day, all the time. I don't recommend eating eggs every day. I think that would be something that's, once in a while, having, if you really like having eggs, having egg whites, not a staple food.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, our next I can't read tonight. I'm so sorry. Our next question is, do you have a plant-based cheese that you would recommend?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. I could actually share with you a recipe for a queso that the base is russet potato. So it's a really great source of potassium and it utilizes nutritional yeast. And it's really good. If you're looking for a recipe, I can for sure send that over. But as far as plant-based cheeses, I think there's really good ones out there now. Like I think Kite Hill is a good brand and Miyoko's. Try to look for ones that are lower in saturated fat, maybe ones that are more potato based could be a little bit better. But either way, if it's a plant-based source, I think it'll be a little bit healthier. But overall, if you're gonna have these products, like kind of like with the eggs, it's not like a staple food where it's really essential to take in your your plant-based cheese. These are like garnishes. These are things to have as like a treat. Yeah, my top two are Miyoko's and Kite Hill. I hope that helps. And I'll send that recipe too. I'm not gonna, really, everybody needs to try this queso recipe. It's so good.
I do love Kite Hill, so I second the Kite Hill recommendation.
Nice.
Okay, our next question is someone here saying that they like mixing their veggies in balsamic vinegar overnight, but they're wondering if this makes them lose their health qualities.
I mean, how much balsamic vinegar is it, and do you eat the balsamic vinegar with it? I don't think that loses the health qualities. The thing is, when it comes to soaking things, is if you pour out if you pour out the soaking water, then you're potentially losing a little bit. Yeah, it's like boiling versus steaming, right? If you boil broccoli in a ton of water and then you dump out the water, you're going to lose some nutrients versus if you just steam it. At the end of the day, though, this is very little. It's like you're still eating the broccoli, you're still eating the vegetables, which is the most important thing. So whichever way is most delicious and easiest for you to prepare them, I'm all for it. Just get those veggies in. I don't think it's very significant.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Someone is asking, I'm not sure how to say this, but what do you think of konjac noodles? K-O-N.
I'm embarrassed. I'm a dietitian. I don't know what that is. Is that like a rice noodle? What's a konjac noodle? I don't know.
What that is? Drop it in the chat and we'll.
I need to look that up.
Well,
but in general, I'll probably say it's amazing. I love noodles.
Well, we learn something new every day, so hopefully we can learn what this is.
Okay. Actually, one thing I will say about that, I don't know what konjac noodles are. Everybody definitely try like black bean pasta, lentil pasta. These bean pastas, such good sources of soluble fiber, potassium, amazing. And if you're concerned about protein, like so easy to really hit your protein needs with bean sources of pasta. Kanji, just throwing it out there. Oh, kimchi. Oh, you mean kimchi? Kimchi, kimchi. I don't know what kanji is, but kimchi, amazing. Sauerkraut, amazing. I think that fermented foods are amazing, and everybody should for sure be taking in some sort of fermented food at least once a day. But it doesn't take a lot, maybe 2 tablespoons of sauerkraut or kimchi.
He wrote back here and he said they are a root-based noodle that are super low in carbs.
Oh, neat. Cool. Sounds like a cool thing to try for sure.
Wonderful. All right, we have time for about 2 more questions here. So our next question is, what are soaked chia seeds?
Oh, they're just chia seeds that have been stirred into liquid and then allowed to sit, and then they just soak. So chia seeds, they expand. If you've ever seen the chia, like those like chia pets, they actually grow so quickly and they basically germinate. They basically soak up in like, probably 5 to 10 minutes. They'll already form that like gel. And if you wait even longer, it's even more delicious. It's like almost like a tapioca soaked, but when they're dry, they're just going to go right through you. You're not going to absorb any omega-3s. They're really just acting like fiber, acting like a broom, just sweeping things away. But when they're soaked, you'll really absorb the fiber and the the omega-3s. So it's important to soak them. Does that make sense? Just adding some liquid to them and letting it soak.
Sorry, I muted. Wonderful. Good question. Okay, and then I think our last question, they were just asking to build on that. How long chia seeds sit to be nutritious?
Yeah, I'm literally just typing this in case you didn't get to it. At least 5 minutes, at least.
Not too
It can
long.
really happen in that amount of time. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then our last thing here, I think it's more of a suggestion to everyone in here, but they asked if you've heard of non-dairy dessert called Arctic Zero. They said they've been eating it instead of ice cream and they hope it's healthy.
Yeah, I have heard of it. I think it's probably a better option. I honestly haven't tried it and I haven't looked into that particular product in detail yet. So I can't say. The bottom line though, when it comes to people coming to me, is this healthy? Is this healthy? Is this healthy? What are you comparing it to? If you're comparing that to, the banana ice cream that I just showed you, probably not that healthy compared to the one that I just showed you. That's literally just like bananas and walnuts. But if you're comparing it to Ben and Jerry's fish food with like whipped cream on top or something, then the Arctic Zero is probably a lot healthier. So yeah, it can be really overwhelming getting in our head about this is not healthy, this is not healthy, this is not healthy. It's like, okay, let's just take a step back and take a deep breath and say like, okay, this is a better option. This is fantastic. And this feels good. This feels like I'm still winning all around. And yeah.
So just better choices little by little, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, that is all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much, Katie, for joining us again. For those of you who are still with us, we have part 3 of the longevity nutrition series on March 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. We hope you'll be able to join us at the next one. I will drop right now into the chat our website if you'd like to go look and register for the next webinar. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you, Katie. We look forward to having you again next month.
Thank you. And here I'm putting on the screen, here's my email. Here's the link. If I know there's a bunch of unanswered questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And if you really, people with these burning questions, I would love to meet one-on-one and help everybody out. Get in those veggies, all right? Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And I just dropped both of those links into the chat if you'd like to click them or copy and paste them, or you can just take a photo, whatever works. But we'll give you about another second here. But thank you so much, Katie. Everyone have a wonderful night.
Thank you.